Hey Credit Warriors, Credit Shifu here, and in this video we are going to be looking at how to absolutely tank your credit score. I mean, send it plummeting by several hundred points. Obviously, this is a guide about how not to do that, but we're going to show you all the factors, all the really high impact factors that will crash your score, okay? So with the FICO score, there are 5 credit factors, and there are 2 that are especially high impact, okay? And that is payment history and also utilization, okay? Payment history, 35% of how your credit score is worked out, utilization 30%. If you go on creditkarma.com, they actually split payment history up into 2 sort of sections. One is payments and one is derogatory marks. FICO actually seems to just merge that together in the payment history, the 35% part of the score. So first of all, we will start with payment history. And let's have a look at all the factors within payment history and how much they will tank your credit score by. So first up, we have missed payments, okay? And missed payments can knock as much as 100 points off of a high credit score, a 750 plus credit score. If your score is lower, there'll be less of an impact from that because obviously your score's already low. So, you know, if you're like at 600 or 20 points will take you down to 580. That's a terrible score. I mean, it's just, you're already low anyway, so it's still going to be bad, right? But it's just not like if you were up in the upper 700s. But something that should be known about missed payments is that they're generally not reported to the credit bureaus unless they are 30 days late. So don't think that just because you missed a payment by 1 day or a few hours and then paid it, that it's automatically going to get reported. It shouldn't be reported unless it's 30 days late. And late payments that are 60 or 90 days late are worse than 30 days late. Now, the next factor in the payment history section is not having a credit card. So if you don't have a credit card, it's not going to report on-time payments to the credit bureaus. So you're not going to be getting that positive information. And then obviously, the more credit cards you have, or loans, or whatever, any type of credit that you are reporting on-time payments, that will be positive. So the more of that you have, the easier it is for you to develop your credit score, and the less credit cards or loans or whatever you have, the less on-time payments are going to be reported, so that's going to mess with your credit score and it's going to drop your credit score. Next, we have collections and charge-offs. We'll start with charge-offs. So charge-offs happen when a lender actually takes your debt off its books, okay? Basically closes down that account and it writes it off as a loss on their accounts and corporate tax return and stuff, okay? This is normally going to be after about 180 days of missed payments or not paying that debt, okay? And they will also normally sell it to a debt collection agency. Now, both of these things, if your credit score is high, they can drop your credit score by as much as 100 points. If your credit score is lower, it won't be quite that much. They also stay on your credit report for 7 years. Next up, we have bankruptcy. Now, bankruptcy is what you can declare when the debts just get too much for you. Maybe you've lost your job, you might have been through a divorce where you have to pay, a settlement to your spouse. There could be all sorts of reasons, okay? And bankruptcy, people can declare bankruptcy to get out of it. Bankruptcy drops your score by between 130 and 240 points. So it is actually the largest item on this list, okay? It has the biggest impact. And it also stay on your report for between 7 and 10 years, depending on the type of bankruptcy that you declare. Next, we have foreclosure. Foreclosure is basically when you cannot pay your mortgage and the bank will take possession of your home. It can drop your credit score by up to 160 points. And it also stays on your credit report for 7 years. Now, I'll talk just a little bit about the foreclosure process because some people might not have heard about it before. So basically what happens is it starts with a public notice being filed, and this can happen after you've missed mortgage payments of 3 to 6 months, depending on the state. Different states have different laws. And so don't forget, because you've already missed payments, you're going to already have your score affected by those missed payments, okay, before the whole thing starts. Then public notice will be filed, so it's actually stuck on the door of your home, which basically tells you that foreclosure is starting, okay? Then you go into pre-foreclosure, which could be between 30 and 120 days, depending on the state. And in this period, you can try to negotiate with the lender, okay? You might be able to negotiate a short sale, which is where you actually sell the home for less than you owe and basically settle with them. They take a hit because perhaps, you've already had many years of mortgage payments. They've already earned a lot of interest on it, so they can kind of like, it kind of evens out for them or whatever. You may also have the chance to actually get the money together to pay what you owe somehow, okay? That's what you have the chance to do in this period. And this would be, on Zillow, if you've ever used that website, you sometimes see homes that are listed as pre-foreclosure. That means they're basically in this time period, this 30 to 120 days. they sometimes never come to market. You never see them again. They just go into pre-foreclosure and then they disappear because the owner of the home actually sorted out with their lender and they were able to keep the home, okay? Maybe they were able to pay what they owed or whatever. So anyway, if it fails, if pre-foreclosure fails, then the house will actually be foreclosed. It'll go to auction, or sometimes the bank just buys it and takes control of it, etc., and you lose your home. Next up, we have deed in lieu, okay? And this is when you voluntarily turn over your property to the bank to avoid foreclosure, okay? And this still drops your credit score. It drops it by up to 125 points. So it's really still not a very desirable thing to happen. And we should also point out that both foreclosure and deed in lieu will be a drop in your score on top of a drop from already missing all those mortgage payments, okay? So your score will be pretty much ruined by these two things. Next up, we have short sale, and we did actually explain what a short sale was in the foreclosure section. When you sell the house for less than you owe and basically settle with the lender for less than you owe them, this can also drop your score by up to 125 points. Now we have debt settlement, okay? And this is related to short sale, but basically it's settling a debt other than a mortgage for less than you owe. So it could be a credit card, could be a car loan, whatever, that's gone to collections and you settle it for less than you actually owe. And this can drop your score by between 45 and 125 points. Next, we have tax liens, okay? And some people might not have heard of this word before, but basically what it is a public record of an unpaid tax, okay? So if you're not paying your taxes, that can go on your credit report too. These can actually damage your credit score as much as bankruptcy can. But there is one sort of lucky thing with this, and that's that in 2017, the credit bureaus brought in new regulations for reporting for tax liens. And so actually it was estimated that back in 2017, 50% of tax liens, because they had been reported incorrectly, were actually wiped off of people's credit reports. So it could damage your score as much as bankruptcy, but then again, if it's not reported correctly, it may actually not appear on your credit report because the credit bureaus have been more strict with the reporting for tax liens since 2017. Next, we have being an authorized user on a bad account. So if you're an authorized user on someone else's credit card, let's say your dad, all right, and your dad stops paying his credit card bills and he has loads of missed payments, that's going to affect you just as bad as if it was your account, okay? So that's something to watch out for when being an authorized user. And lastly, for the payment history section, we have credit report errors, and errors are actually more common than you'd think. And you can resolve errors by disputing them, going through a credit repair process. You can either do this yourself by buying a book on credit repair, there are many available, or you can go to a credit repair agency and have a professional basically take care of it for you and dispute errors. All right, guys, so that's the payment history and derogatory marks section. Now let's go on to the utilization section. This is a bit smaller, there's just a few factors. So basically number one is credit utilization. I recommend people to stay under 30% of utilizing their available credit. And if you go over 30%, it can start to seriously affect your credit score. You can drop, 10, 20, 30 points just by having, 30 or even 50% utilization. As you get higher, it drops even more. And for best practices, for the best effect, I would recommend staying under 10%, especially if you're thinking about applying for a mortgage anytime soon. One aspect is that it helps your credit score, but also if you're applying for a mortgage or something like that, you want to keep your credit card balance is low anyway, so your minimum payments are low, because minimum payments are accounted for as debt that lowers the amount of money that you have available for your mortgage payment, okay? So they won't lend you as much money. And last thing with that is just spend evenly across your cards. You don't have to have massive balance on one card and a really low balance on the other, because that'll still affect it. So that's kind of my next point, maxing out, all right? Don't max out your credit card. Maxing out a credit card can cause your score to drop by as much as 45 points. Next, we have canceling a credit card. Now, canceling a credit card lowers your overall amount of credit limit, so it may increase your utilization. May, because it depends on if you adjust your spending or not. If you adjust your spending so that you're spending less, then you wouldn't have that problem. And also you can remember to, if you pay your cards off before the statement closes, the balances won't be reported anyway. So you can still spend on cards, just pay them off early, and then you won't report high utilization or maxing out or whatever. And our last one, same as the other one, is just being an authorized user on a high utilization account. So let's say, again, you're on your dad's credit card, and he's a big spender and he's not paying his balances down low because he doesn't really care about his credit score. He's already bought a car, he's bought a house, he doesn't need to apply for any more credit, so he's just you know, he's not really paying attention to it. If you're an authorized user on that kind of account, then that's going to hurt your credit score if you're showing utilization of like 50% or more or maxed out or whatever. So you might want to consider just getting yourself off that account. All right, guys, so those are a load of factors that can tank your credit score. So if you want to go and tank your credit score, follow that guide. But, you know, obviously this is really a guide of how not to do it. Please leave your thoughts below. There may be some others that we have missed. We will put a link to one of our best cards for building credit. So if you have tanked your credit score and you are trying to rebuild your credit, the Capital One Platinum is a great card to get. Also the Capital One Secured MasterCard. If you can't even get a regular credit card, you can get a secured card by putting like $200 down, I believe. And we'll put the links to those in the description. They are affiliate links, so they help out our show. If you want to see the advertiser disclosure, it's at the bottom of the description section of this video. Thanks, guys. Please subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.